Welcome back to From the Studio, another podcast exploring stories from the world of product design, innovation, and more. My name is Nick Bramley, your podcast host, and I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Richard Hall. But today we've got a very, very special guest. Our guest is Amar Latif. Now, this intro will take a while. Amar is a travel entrepreneur, television presenter, public motivational speaker, founder and director of Traveleyes, and inventor of companion cane, to name but a few of his achievements. He has a highly successful, multifaceted career. He's an entrepreneurial achiever and has an international television profile, all built around a backdrop dominated by teenage onset of blindness due to the incurable eye condition, retinitis pigmentosa. By the age of 18, this has resulted in 95% sight loss. We'd love to tap into some of his legendary motivational stories on the podcast. He's been on the likes of the BBC, The One Show, Channel 4. He's also been on Celebrity MasterChef, which in itself could be a programme of us to explore. But amongst his many other achievements, we're on the From the Studio podcast. We're going to concentrate on the work that we at PDM International have done with Amar, developing the companion cane. So after quite the build-up, welcome to From the Studio podcast, Amar.
Thanks for having me. I hope it's not a disappointment now after all of that.
I suspect it won't be, to be fair. There's a lot to explore, but as I say, because it's From the Studios about innovation, product design, and those kind of areas, I think we're going to concentrate on companion cane. We might touch on, some of the other things around that if they come up in conversation. But shall we start by explaining to the audience what the companion cane actually is in terms of a product?
Yes, so the companion cane is like a cane, like a stick, as the name suggests, and it unfolds and it's got handles on both sides and it can extend up to 1.5 meters. So it basically enables people to be guided in a different way. So as you said, I'm blind, and usually when I'm being guided by somebody, I would take their arm. So there's always that contact. But with the companion cane, this is like a new invention. The person that can see is at front with their arm by their side, and then holding on to one side when and the visually impaired person, or the VIP, as I like to say, is at the back holding the other hand out.
So it's like a 1.5 meter measuring stick for social distancing, but also to feel comfortable and confident that you are in some way being guided as the VIP. I love that, by the way. Is that the purpose then, the social distancing aspect and retaining that confidence?
Well, yeah, it was the social distancing initially because, we developed it during the pandemic. And, one group of people that were really forgotten were visually impaired people. So, blind people, they found it a huge challenge to be guided by their friends, because my friends were saying, Amar, we can't guide you, I'm sorry, but we're not bubbling with you. And then I was left by myself thinking, okay, you always say in life, whenever you face any kind of adversity or challenge, if you have the right mindset, then you can create something really beautiful, even more spectacular than before you even had the problem. So I said, come on, let's have a little think. And it happened to be when I met Richard that, Richard said, do you have any ideas? And, that made me think. And we came up with a concept.
It seems of its time, obviously, with regard to the social distancing element of that. But it seems also then, because we're recording this in, the end of 2021, has it been quite a speedy journey from I've got no one to take me out and guide me to we've now got a product on the shelves? How's the pace of that been for you from the initial idea to where you are now?
Well, it has taken a while. But the thing is, not having done this kind of thing before, and being an entrepreneurs want things yesterday, and the product world, as I'm exploring, doesn't really work like that. So it took us a little bit of a while to, follow all the procedures and legalities and, design concepts, and all that takes a lot of time. So, it didn't move as quick as possible, but although it was designed with social distancing in mind, more important than that now, it's used for all kinds of things. So I run a company called Traveleyes. We take blind and sighted people all over the world on holiday. And when you're in a hot country or when you're walking in the countryside, this has got a beautiful use. You've got your space. So like, although it's 1.5 maximum, you can shorten it as well. But generally when I'm in the countryside, I like to extend it to 1.5. And it's like, as a visually impaired person, it's like giving you that feeling of being free, being independent, almost like you're walking by yourself, because we don't have that luxury. As a sighted person, you can go off on a walk on your own. So it did take a long time, but the thing is, it's not, just a social distancing product.
No. Okay. Well, Richard, I'm going to ask you, Richard would probably argue, counterbalance that in relative terms, it might not have taken as long, because obviously the difference between a product development innovator like Richard and an entrepreneur is the sort of, I guess, the reality of how long these things do take. But I'm more interested in how you first encountered each other, Richard, and how you first became involved in discussions around companion cane.
Well, we first met when I was at home. So I live in the Yorkshire Dales, and Amar passed me on a Saturday evening, and I was outside with the kids just about to set up camp, and I recognised him from 42 Under 42 Insider magazine, and just started having a conversation. And it kind of all started from there, really. It was, as COVID was kicking in, and we had a chat about what that's going to mean, and how is that going to be, how's that going to manifest itself, with VIPs, and that's kind of how the conversation started, really. I mean, the really good inventions out there start from a need. There are so many people out there that invent a product or a problem that does not exist, whereas this is the right way around, and they're always good. They're the good projects to work on.
So I know
it was pretty incredible, because as I was walking past your house, there was 3 tents out there, and my friend Natalie said, "Oh my God, there's 3 tents and there's a little campfire." I was like, "Oh, really? Is anybody there?" She said, "No." And then as she was describing stuff to me, Richard came out and he went, "Are you okay, Amar?" I was like, "Oh my goodness, how do you know me?"
Wow. Small world. I mean, the Yorkshire Dales are massive, aren't they? So it's a small world that happened. I mean,
serendipity, really. Serendipity on that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Richard, I know at PDM you consider things like commercial reality, market opportunity, but also the people behind the idea. Can you recall your first impressions of having the conversation with Amar around the companion cane, and did it help that it was a conversation with somebody that you had, knowledge of and huge respect for in the first instance?
Yeah, I think there was a few things. One is that there was a need for the product. The second one is that if you're an entrepreneur and you start a business from scratch and you make it into something successful, then you've got that tacit knowledge to turn your hand to other things. So I like the fact that Amar has got those skills and knowledge. And what I figured is that if we can come up with the idea, then we don't need to worry about Amar going out there and promoting it and selling it. And a lot of people think that just because they've got a great idea that it would automatically sell itself. Having the idea is a percentage of it being successful, but you've got to have that drive as an entrepreneur to really get it out there. So, so I thought it was a pretty safe bet that we'd be able to get this product as far as we have.
Okay. Well, Amar, let's have a look at it. On the face of it, it may seem like a fairly simple concept and product. At the end of the day, it's an extendable cane that is is usable for both ends, as the name suggests, as companions, etc. So given that it was fairly straightforward, and given your entrepreneurial flair, what made you seek out the help of somebody in an innovation design setting like PDM Studio, and how early did those discussions happen then?
Well, in my mind, I was thinking of, it's going to be straightforward. I was thinking of like the aerials that you get on your car that stick up. I thought something thin as that kind of like telescopic, that open, and with something to hold on to, like a little ball on either side. I thought something like that would work. So in my mind, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be so straightforward and stuff. But then so that's what I went to Richard with. I was like, Richard, can we make it out of that? And then we sort of like realized that it might not be strong enough. And then this is when, it was great working with Richard. I guess when I met Richard, and Richard had said, if you have any ideas, let me know. And then that got me thinking, oh, I have got this one idea that, it was just in the back of my mind. So by knowing someone like PDM and like Richard, it kind of like helps to shape your ideas, in your mind. We all walk around thinking of ideas, we think, oh, that would be great, but we never really know how to do it. But then when you know somebody in product design, that really, really helps.
Okay. I mean, you're probably right. Those who've got an entrepreneurial spirit and a flair about them are constantly having little sort of light bulbs going on out there and wondering, oh, how would you do that? How would you do this? So I'm going to take this back a step for Richard. This is mainly for our audience to explore, really, in terms of what was the process you go through to validate an idea into a product, and then identify where you can add that value and map out the steps taken from getting that concept into a reality. What is that journey? Because Amar's been through the typical journey of this. What is that journey for our audience, Richard, please?
Yeah, good question. There's a few points to answer on there. The first that Amar alluded to is that everybody has an idea. The problem is that those ideas can be based on assumptions, and it's our job to look at where the challenges are within a product. So when we started with Companion Cane, it was about something that was telescopic, but that was also lightweight, but was also rigid. And normally those three things don't, come in one kind of package. So a lot of it is to work with the client and tease out the information. And we like to get into 3-dimensional prototypes as soon as possible, because then it makes the whole thing come alive, and it makes you realize things that you thought would be easy are perhaps not so. So probably quicker than other projects that we work on. We started using our 3D prints a lot sooner, because that way it's a lot more tactile. We can put them in the hands of Amar, and he can kind of play around with it. And then rather than us try and communicate the challenges of having something, for example, telescopic that will goes out to 1.5 or 2 meters and is rigid to go around the corners, then it helps with those kind of conversations. But the good thing is it also sparks other conversations, and you go into other areas of product design that you'd not considered. So I think there's lots of different areas in this that we brought to.
Okay, I'll go to Amar. When did you realize you were potentially onto a winner with this then, Amar? With regard to Richard and the team working on it, your idea coming to life a little bit. Was it, there'll be some stage where you thought, actually, this has gone from just a little thought process to it's becoming real now. Was there a moment in that journey that you thought, yeah, we're here?
Yes, there was. It was when we went through various iterations of the prototype. The initial ones were quite chunky, and the handles, we wanted some luxurious handles that allowed the person to, swing their hands comfortably. But after testing it, when the sighted person did a sharp left turn, the VIP would be like walking right next to them instead of behind them. So it sounds all simple, but then ultimately choosing that perfect handle where that didn't happen and the person is always behind, and making it slim enough and attractive, because despite the fact that we're blind, we still want things to look good. And it was when towards the final few prototypes, it just felt great. In the hand, it felt great. And, people looking at it said, oh, that's nice. And I was like, oh, I feel quite happy that, that we worked on this.
That must have been quite a proud moment. I think that, when somebody says it looks nice, but also that it feels right to you, that must have been quite a proud moment. You think we're onto something here then, yeah?
Absolutely. And, we wanted it, when we thought about when you fold it away, like how do you carry it? And then we thought about having a little purpose customized bag that you put over your shoulder, just something really, really light. So we were imagining people, going into the supermarket and suddenly they don't want to hold a companion cane as well as their normal cane. So it was, things like that, and it all started to come together.
Okay. Well, you're an entrepreneur, which probably means that you're an ideas person. We've already touched on that, little light bulbs going on, etc. So was the companion cane your first product idea? And if so, how aware were you of the journey that you were going to get into? And if it wasn't your first product idea, what have been some of the others?
Well, I think this was the first physical idea that I've ever came up with. Physical as in, touching, feeling like an actual product. So I've never created a product before. So that's been a great learning curve, knowing the kind of issues that you need to consider. Like Richard said earlier, a layperson makes assumptions. You make assumptions and you think, oh, that's easy. But, when you take it through the reality, that's been quite a great journey to experience. And I think, it's good for everyone to try and experience that. I did, obviously, the idea that I'm the most proud of is setting up Traveleyes, because I used to be an accountant for many, many years. I had money, I wanted to go on holiday, and travel companies said to me that I couldn't join their group tours because I'm blind unless I bring somebody with me. And I thought that was quite limiting. So I realized that if I wanted to travel independently, I had to change the way travel worked. And back in 2004, I set up the world's first international tour operator that enabled blind people to travel the world independently, with sighted travelers who came on, and the sighted travelers, in return for guiding and describing, get to travel for half price. So that's and that's been going really well. Before the pandemic, we were doing 70 tours.
I was going to say you've probably had some restrictions over the last 18
That's right.
years.
Our travelers are constantly asking us when we're going to be back up and running. But yeah, we did all kinds of trips, from like active holidays to discovery tours to sun, sea, and sand. So I was very proud of that. And other than that, I did create an app many years ago, allowing menus to be on a digital accessible format for blind people. So yeah, I'm always on the thinking side. Excellent. Light bulb side.
Well, in terms of physical product, though, it is a very different dynamic from getting that idea, from either that versus a service or versus an app. And I'd have to say, hats off on Traveleyes. It's absolutely. The beauty of Traveleyes, by the way, is the simplicity of the concept, isn't it? And like everything, it sounds simple. I'm sure there's a lot of work, getting it all right and everything, but it's a fairly simple concept in it when you boil it down. And the simple ones seem to work the best. And I think that's where companion cane comes in. It's a very simple idea, but beautifully executed, I guess, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is great. It gives people another option to be guided, because it makes you feel more independent when you're using the companion cane, because you're still using your cane on one hand, but then you've got the companion cane in your other hand, and you've got the distance from that person. And when there's a group of you, like two or three of you walking together, you're not clung to one person by your side. You've got other people that can chat. So it gives you that flexibility, which I absolutely love. And our travelers are loving it as well. And when we're up and running, it's going to be a great way for exploring the world with the companion cane.
I was going to say the Traveleyes and companion cane are a natural bedfellow, aren't they, when it comes to your tours and your international travel, and the companion cane being a way of, on a localized level, people feeling that independence and freedom. Brilliant that it fits together.
Absolutely. And but it has been an incredible journey, and I've learned a lot. So it's hopefully it's inspired me to be thinking of other things that can make people's life easier.
Excellent. Let's just go back a touch. We did touch on the journey time. Amar, you were suggesting it took a while. Richard, I think you'd probably thought it was. Give us a timescale, Richard, from when you first discussed it to when the product was finalized and ready and boxed and market fresh. How long was it from start to finish?
I think realistically, but my memory might not serve me correctly, probably around a year, I think, all told. I think you mentioned earlier about things taking a while, but I think to do things correctly, sometimes they do. And I think the other aspect is, the other challenge for this project is to make something simple is quite difficult. It's always the simple ideas that you see out there that you think, why didn't I think of that? Well, the reason is because it was incredibly simple. But the process, I think, probably from start to finish was around a year, but there were lots of kind of challenges to work through. I think one aspect, for example, was to use as many kind of off-the-shelf items as we could. So, you know, we didn't have the budget to design it from scratch. So there were lots of kind of compromises out there, but ultimately we got a product solution which is optimized for use, you know, in terms of how it looks, how it functions, the weight, how it extends, all of those kind of aspects.
I mean, I guess there's no such thing as a typical product journey, but do you think that, you know, a lot of budding product developers and entrepreneurs just don't understand what they're entering into then? Would you say that, Richard? And Amar, from your perspective, you know, was it different to what you expected? So I'll take Richard first. You know, do people get it and know what they're getting into? And then when Richard's done that, Amar, was it what you expected, or did you have no idea what you're letting yourself in for?
So my view is that, you know, generally speaking, it is because it can be rather abstract, the process of design. And as we mentioned earlier, somebody can have an assumption in their mind, but because there's not a physical manifestation, you know, that bias will always be there in the entrepreneur's mind. So there is a defined process we work through. It's very structured. It's not, yes, it's an art form, but you know, there is a structure behind it. And I think with what we do, we've got many years of experience of guiding clients through that process. And sure, you can leapfrog fundamental aspects of developing a product, but it will definitely come back and bite you because you've not done something in the right order. Okay. So generally speaking, I would say yes, entrepreneurs are, by their very capacity, go-getters and want to get stuff done, but sometimes the product development process can't go at the same pace.
Okay. Would you say that's what you found, Amar?
Oh, absolutely. I was completely shocked. I wanted this product done in like 2-3 months, you know, because I'm willing to, you know, work hard and get things going. But like Richard says, and that I became aware of, like, there's so many, you know, first you got to identify what products are out there that could work. And then when you're putting it together, then it's the testing and seeing if it is actually fit for purpose. And even if it is fit for purpose, then is it the right size? You've got to change the size, and then you might need to change the products that you're using because they're just not as sexy. You know, because my big thing is, like, whenever I'm even designing my website, I always say to my web developers I work with, you know, I want something that really is accessible for people that are blind. But I don't want to compromise the way it looks. I need it to look sexy. It's got to be beautiful. And that's the same with the companion cane. You know, it's got to look good and feel good, you know. And now when you hold the companion cane, you know, it does feel great in your hands. And when you open it up and you're using it. And I was in Dubai for many months this year, and you know, Richard was kind enough to send me the prototypes out there, and I was using it, and people are like, "Wow, that's cool. What's that?" You know. And we've got a video on YouTube that I filmed in Dubai. If you type in how to guide a blind person using the companion cane, you can see it there. And because it's a brand new product, like, you have to train people on how to use it. So it's designing that aspect as well.
Okay, I mean, I've seen the short coverage on the One Show, which is quite impressive as well, where I think you're going through Leeds, weren't you, and showcasing how the idea came about, and the reaction is universally sort of, wow, that's great, isn't it? And that's quite cool. I mean, that in itself must be very pleasing. But I suspect there were some hiccups along the way and frustrations in the product development journey. Can you think of any specifically then, Amar, and maybe how at the time you were thinking, you know, is this worth it? Where are we? You know, what have I bitten off? What were the low points or the challenging points on that journey for you as the entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think initially the stick was seeming quite clunky, and I was like just a bit disheartened, thinking, oh, this is quite a clunky piece of kit. And when we designed the D-shaped handles, and like I said before, they weren't quite working. So I tested them out with my PA, and I said, look, okay, imagine you're doing a sharp left turn, and I'd end up walking beside him. But because I couldn't see, I still thought I was behind him because the handles just twisted. Because we thought that was a luxury little thing that they could have, twisting handles. But that was probably the lower part of the journey, thinking, oh my God, this is so simple, and yet it feels like I'm so far from the end product. And then working with Richard and Pippa at PDM, it was I just had to feed that back. I was like, guys, it's not working. So then they created different handles for it. I was like, wow, okay, this works now. These handles work, but the size is too clunky. It's just not sexy enough. And then Pippa went away and made the design much more slimmer, and that felt great. That was the magic. Then when I felt it in my hand, I thought, this is it. It feels great, and I knew that it was going to be the right thing.
Excellent. I mean, I guess, you solve one problem, create another, and that's part of the product development side of things, really. I guess, Richard, the last question for you, I got a really nice last question for Amar. This is flying, by the way, in terms of timing. I guess from a product design innovation point of view, it's really about the value add, isn't it? The risk management and the support and advice you can give to any entrepreneur around that product journey. Is it something that you would offer to anyone, and what would you say to anyone at the moment who's got a product idea? Lots of people had time on their hands, haven't they, through furloughs and whatever, and they're sat there on the next big thing. What would you say to them as an ideas person they should be thinking about doing first and next?
Yeah, I'd say the primary thing is to just be aware of assumptions, because that could put you into a kind of potentially dangerous place. I think the other aspect for people that are starting the journey is that they tend to think of it positively. Obviously, they've got an idea, they want to get it to market and make money, but some people need to have another aspect to them of actually challenging their assumptions. So I'm not talking about, for example, talking to kind of friends and family. I'm talking about having critical friends and taking your hands off the steering wheel and welcoming other people's critical view, because there are lots of innovations out there, and some of them don't make it, and some of them have niggles and problems in them. But the earlier you can find out where those niggles and problems are, the earlier you can fix them. So I'd say generally, get into 3-dimensional prototypes as soon as possible, and just think a bit in terms of a fail fast, fail cheap kind of mentality. Physically look for points of weakness. Don't kind of pretend that everything's going to be okay, and that way you will come across those bumps in the road earlier in the journey than later.
Okay, I've got a final question for you, Amar. What are the plans and ambitions for Companion Cane going forward, and what's next on your amazing personal journey?
Oh gosh, I'm really proud of the Companion Cane, and we are not only selling it to organizations, institutions, blind institutions in this country, but also because it's world unique, we're selling it to blind organizations in the States, in Canada, and Australia. So it's really, really exciting. And as well as that, to our lovely Traveleyes travelers who are really been very, very interested in the Companion Cane. So a very exciting future for the Companion Cane. As far as myself, I think I'm going to be on a program called Inside Dubai that's coming out shortly. And it will be on BBC Two, I think. And you'll be able to see me screaming like a child as I'm swimming in the sea with this lifeguard, a great Nigerian lifeguard that was my eyes in the water. And so the BBC were really keen to do a little piece in the documentary. And he passes me this crab, and this crab jumps out of my hand, goes in the sea, and then suddenly 2 minutes later, it's crawling up my leg, up my trunks. Anyway, there's that program, and there's a few other programs which I can't talk about just now, but keep tuned, and I'll be posting stuff on social media at some point.
Excellent. You're still doing speakers circuit stuff and looking at things like TED Talks and the likes?
Yes, the motivational speeches have just gone absolutely crazy. I'm doing about 2 or 3 a week because we're coming out of lockdown. A lot of corporations out there wanting to motivate their staff. So I'm speaking to Samsung tomorrow, lots of housing associations, and lots of charities out there. So yeah, I'm still trying to share my vision, because I think that no matter what problems we face in life, if you have the right mindset, then you can not only overcome those problems, but you can create really, really beautiful solutions.
Wow. I don't think we can finish on a better message than that, to be fair, Amar. I'm just going to finish with the boring holding slide that tells you our contact details, but that's hard to follow, is that one. So we are from the studio, part of PDM International. We're based in Thirsk, North Yorkshire, and we're also based in the centre of Leeds. Our contact details for those who watch this are on the screen, and for those who don't, they'll be in the show notes. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much, Amar, for being an absolutely fantastic guest, inspirational and motivational. But I think you've also shared with our audience that sort of insight into taking an idea from a little light bulb at the back of your head to a product. And despite the fact that you and Richard will never be on the same page as to whether it was fast or slow, I do believe you got there in the end at the right pace. So thanks very much, Amar, for being a fantastic guest, and we look forward to seeing you on the circuit and on TV and on motivational shows very soon.
Oh, it's a pleasure meeting you, Nick. Lovely chatting with you.
Cheers. You too.
Thanks.